Hello viewers, and welcome to another episode of the Enoch Generation, a generation that walks with God. In our studios today, we have with us Jean Gloria. She's from Bahrain and she's working there. She's come down to Chennai to share her journey with Jesus. So it's a warm welcome to you, Jean. It's so nice to have you with us. And it's nice that you've traveled miles to come and share your story. And I know you have a very powerful testimony, and it's going to be a big blessing to those who listen to it. So, Jean, you've been born and brought up in a Christian family, Christian household. And when did your walk with Jesus begin?
Actually, I was born in a family. My parents were Pentecostals, and so I was brought up in that kind of an atmosphere. And it was when I was in the 11th standard, that is when I gave my heart to the Lord, and I obeyed the Lord in taking the waters of baptism. So that is where my journey began with Christ. But of course, as human beings, we all make our mistakes, and so anyway, my spiritual journey began from then.
Okay, but as a little child, what opinion, what was your view about Jesus? Did you have any encounters with him? Did you see signs, wonders, and miracles happening? Okay, this was all before you accepted him as your personal savior.
No, but as a child, what I've seen is my parents were involved in the deliverance ministry. Okay. So I have seen a lot of things happening around, and like how they were leading people to Christ. You know, these kind of things I was witnessing. Okay. And even people would come home for the deliverance. And so I was brought up in that kind of an atmosphere, though I did not have a personal walk with God at that age when I was young. But I just grew up in this, and my parents really taught me the principles, the biblical principles. And so being the youngest in the family, I was always around them. And they brought me up, they instilled in me all these godly principles, like, for example, the tithing, honoring the servants of God, and, all this kind of things that they taught me. And that is really embedded in my heart over the years.
So it's like you've been so blessed to have godly parents. Amen. Who put you in the right direction. So church going, Bible reading, ministry was just a part of your life.
Yes.
Yeah, but did you have any, you watched them and you watched people being delivered. You saw the ministry they did. But did that build up your faith?
If I have to talk to you on that level, I really did not have a personal relationship with the Lord in the sense like a real love for the Lord. But deep down in my heart, I know that God is around me. I know the how a Christian walk, all this I knew, but one-to-one I did not have a personal walk with God. Okay. Until I went through the furnace situation, and then that's when I developed my really close relationship with God. Yes.
So what exactly, pivoted you to turn your focus on Christ and, begin to love him as not just God, but as your Father and your everything and all?
It is a very long journey, but to cut it short, at the age of 20 years, I took a major decision which was very wrong in my marriage. I did not ask the counsel of God, and I married someone who's not from God. And so that is where I faced a lot of trouble. It was a real furnace walk that I had. And through all these things, like the psalmist says, that we walk through the fire, through the water, and through the flood. And the Lord brought us through rich fulfillment. And through the afflictions, we get to learn the statutes of God. So it is during my walk in this furnace that I began to really seek the Lord from deep within,
Okay.
That the love for the Lord began during those days.
So you understood that you had made a mistake somewhere, and you were
Yes.
turning and seeking the Lord's counsel as to how you need to go through the situation that you were in.
Yes.
Okay, so this was after your marriage, but when you gave your life to Christ, I think it was at the age of 11, you said?
No, 11th grade I was in, so about 16
grade.
years.
Okay, 16 years. What made you actually, give your life to Christ at that point of time?
That's mainly because at the age of 12, I lost my mother. So it
Okay.
was, I was with my father. So my dad used to continue talking about the Lord, putting the fear of God in my heart. And then he said, you need to really take water baptism. You really need to commit your life to Christ. So because he's been constantly guiding me, my father, so I decided, yes, so what my dad is saying is right. So I will do that. But it didn't initiate from me, but from my parents.
So this was more like a step of obedience to what
Yes,
your dad told you.
exactly, yes.
And how many siblings do you have?
I have 2 elder sisters and 2 elder brothers, and I'm the youngest.
Okay.
Yeah. So being the youngest, I was always pampered as a child, and but somehow the Lord has been always speaking to me, reminding me about how David, when he was faced with Goliath, he had the 5 pebbles in his hand. And out of that one pebble was used to kill Goliath. So the Lord was speaking to me and saying, Jean, you are that one stone.
Wow,
So
that's awesome.
So God has been speaking to me, and I said, yes, Lord, really how the Lord loves me so much, and He's chosen me from among my siblings, and really I was felt so much loved by the Lord.
That's wonderful. So, being so pampered and petted and, in a very secure environment, and you said you took one wrong step and you were faced with so many challenges. So, how did you feel when you were just, like thrown into the open? It was just like, as you said, David, there tending the sheep, and all of a sudden faced with the lion, faced with the bear. How did you feel at those situations?
I was totally, basically, I was a very meek person. I would hardly communicate with people. As a child, I was a very closed person.
Okay.
I would be really happy to be alone. So, and I grew up with that kind of a nature. So when I got married and came into that family, it was a joint family that we stayed in. My husband was a Punjabi. And so it was a very difficult thing, but only thing that made me hold on is I was very calm within. Under any circumstance, I would be calm. That I know that has really come from the Lord, because I would spend a lot of time in praying, reading the Word. So I believe I got the strength from the Lord to hold on through all the things. Of course, in the closed rooms, I would cry. When I sleep in the night, I would cry. I would just cry out to the Lord. But on the face, in front of everybody, I would look, I'm very strong, like nothing has happened, nothing is shaken. But a few close people, my pastor, they all knew what was going on with my life. But of course, to the world, I was perfectly a normal person, though I went through a lot of pain, wound, betrayal, rejection, a lot of things that I went through. But it's only in quietness and confidence is your strength.
Amen.
So I could feel the inner strength that I had. It is all from the Lord. That made me hold on to, I was 15 years in that troubled marriage.
Okay. So it was like you had peace in the midst of the storm.
Amen.
Because Jehovah Shalom was with you.
Amen, yes.
Yeah. So then you had how many kids in your marriage?
I had a daughter and 2 sons.
Okay. So when you were going through all this crisis, you would have had your kids watching what was happening there. So how did it affect them?
My daughter was a little grown up. Of course, my second son, he was a little small. And the third one was really tiny, toddler he was. So it was mainly affected my daughter because she was the older one. So she used to observe things, and that used to really affect her a lot. But though in closed doors, I would always teach them about the Lord. Because it was a Punjabi family, they were Sikhs, so they would like to take the children on Sundays to the Gurudwara and all that. But within them, it was Jesus all the way, because I would talk to them about the Bible. I would pray with them in the nights when we go to sleep. So they were rooted in the Word.
Okay.
Yeah.
So although you had a very troubled marriage, the kids were affected. And
Yes.
when did you take the decision, and why did you take the decision to move out?
It was about 15 years I went through this trauma, and a day came like my husband, he was attempting to murder me. He wanted to get rid of me because he could no longer stay in the marriage. He wanted me out. And I could sense that the Lord was speaking to me. He was raising up prophets around me that he is attempting to murder me. And it was in the year 2000, January, 1999 December into Jan 2000. Things were really traumatizing at home. My husband was trying to strangle me, to kill me, and all those signs were showing up, though it wasn't initially. So that's when I realized I need to step out, because I did not want to step out because I'm basically a very quiet and soft person. So even the worst person, I would still try to love them and be nice with them. And so this is what happened. I thought I will continue staying in the marriage, number one, for the sake of the children. And number two is I'm a very forgiving person. I try to overlook all these things until a stage came that I could not stay on more. And this time the Lord stepped in and he wanted me to step out. So that is when I was forced to take the decision to leave.
Okay. So then where did you move out, and how did your life change after that?
So it so happened the Lord orchestrates things together. My sister's husband had come to Tirunelveli because his father passed away in January, first week of January 2000. So he came and then he called me and asked me one question, Jean, is everything fine? And over these 15 years, I would never tell my siblings or my dad what I was going through, because I realized this was my decision. So I made the wrong decision. So I need to bear the consequences of it. And so when he asked me that question, Jean, is everything fine? I again covered up and I said, yes, everything is fine. But in closed doors, my husband was beating me up and he was really trying to murder me. And it was so bad that even my daughter had to intervene. She was only about 9 years or so. She had to intervene, come between us, and she had to call the neighborhood, and all things like that happened. So, so that is when. So I told him it is fine, but he called my aunt, who was aware of it. So when he called her, she said, "No, you need to really take her out. Otherwise, you're not going to see her." So that is when he stepped in, and then all arrangements were made. And the Lord, it was like the Exodus journey that I had, myself and my 3 children. I mean, there's lots more to say, but I cannot share everything because due to time constraints. So the Lord just brought us out. It was like we were under the bondage, Egyptian bondage, and the Lord brought us out in a very marvelous way. And I could just see the hand of the Lord throughout the journey when he brought us out.
So it was then that you moved to Bahrain?
Yes, in February 3rd, February 3rd, 2000, we moved to Bahrain. Yes.
Okay, then how did your kids adapt to the new environment, and was it okay for them, with what you did?
Yes, my children were very happy because what was happening in the house was violence, absolute violence. So when we moved out and we were staying with my sister and brother-in-law, there was absolute peace and so much of happiness and joy. And we were connected to the church and we got involved in the church ministry right from, though my youngest son was only about 2.5, 3 years, he would start playing the drums in the church as well. Yeah. So, and my other son was also playing the guitar and keyboard. And so we were totally focused and our mind was occupied with the things of the Lord, doing the Lord's ministry in the church. So that was something which really helped us get over the past. God healed us quickly.
Okay, so then when you went there, did you take up a job or something like that? And how did you get settled in this place?
Yes, I did. For a year, I was without a job at home because the rules in Bahrain at that time was only the husband can sponsor the wife and children. But
Okay.
here I was without the husband and only myself and with my 3 children. But my elder brother was also there, and my sister and brother-in-law as well. So my elder brother got me a job in the hotel industry because he was a group general manager in the hotel. And so he spoke to his boss and he got me the job. But when they applied for my visa and for my children's visa on the immigration, they said a woman cannot sponsor the children. But you won't believe God made it possible. And the words of that immigration officer was that he said, I had to change the laws of this country for this lady. Who is she?
Oh my God.
This was the word of that immigration officer. He was a sheikh. So my boss, he conveyed it to my brother. This is his. So that was a testimony from the time we stepped in to
Okay.
Bahrain.
So the Lord had just planned it for you.
Amen. Absolutely.
Yeah. So your kids continued their education there.
Yes, continued
Okay.
there. And when we left Chennai, it was in February. February is the time we have the final exams and all that for the children. And that is when we left. And so when we came to Bahrain, when we approached the schools, they were so kind enough. The Lord's favor was upon us. And they immediately admitted my children to the next grade.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
instead of telling them to repeat the year, they willingly accepted them. I mean, there again, you see the hand of the Lord at work.
Okay. So how did your kids, find the atmosphere in school out there?
And school, they really enjoyed. They didn't find much of a difference compared to
Okay.
Of course, in India, it was a Christian school. They were in Jesse Moses school. And here, it is an Indian school. You don't have that religious kind of a background. But of course, they enjoyed their schooling.
Okay. So you continue the education there, and then have your children settled down in the same place?
Yes, they did their schooling and their college, and they've also taken up jobs. Initially, it was because as a single mother, I was supporting the 3 children. So once they finished the school, they took a part-time job, and they would do evening college.
Okay, that's
So
very nice.
yeah, so they are very understanding to the family situation, and they were the eldest daughter as well as the second son.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
So, as you journeyed with your children and as you kept growing closer to the Lord, you must have had a lot of revelations from the Lord every day as you proceeded. So, how was God guiding you?
It was a really very difficult one on one side, but at the other side, it was the Lord who was leading me on a day-to-day basis, and He would speak to me mainly through dreams.
Okay.
He would show me a lot of things, and through that, I would be able to know what the Lord is speaking to me, what He's trying to convey to me. And so that is how I would. But there is one thing that I want to take you back. Before I left Chennai, I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the mornings. And the reason why I'm sharing this is about the prayer life, how important it is. Like most of us neglect praying. So I would, without an alarm clock, wake up in the morning, 4 o'clock, 4 to 6:30 before sending my children to school. I would just walk through the house, worship the Lord, just sing and worship, nothing else I would do. So it was almost for 9 months this was happening. So that is when the Lord opened the door and we were able to leave. So I had forgotten to mention that point because prayer is so important. Like, for example, the life of Daniel when it's because Daniel prayed, the lion's mouth was shut. And when we take the life of Peter when he was in the prison, because the church prayed, God opened the prison doors. So prayer is such an important thing, that we need to cooperate with God and we need to.
It's a beautiful point that you've stressed. And viewers, you've been listening to her. the difficult journey that she had, but because she had a close walk with God, and as she said, she used to, in the midst of all her trouble, she made sure that she was in communion with God. And as she was in communion with Him, God made a way for her, literally split the Red Sea for her, and took her to where she needed to go so that the plan and purpose of God in her life would be fulfilled. So you've been listening to her wonderful journey. Now she will be with us in the next episode where she will continue her journey with Jesus. So till the next episode, it's a goodbye and God bless.
God bless.
போல் இருந்திட்டாலும்